I'm Roy Lee Lindsay with the North Carolina Pork Council, and I want everyone to remember, bacon makes everything better.
Wild Dogs and Hogs here on the North Carolina Sports Network. Mike Waddell along with the coach, Jimmy Collins. And again this week, we're going to take you through 4 big quarters of college football talk. We'll lead it off with North Carolina and Duke, that double overtime thriller over the weekend. We'll then go to the second quarter and NC State and a Big 4 win over Wake Forest, one of the sleepiest wins of all time that series has seen. But the Wolfpack seemingly on a roll here now towards the late part of the season. We'll talk Appalachian State, not one, but now 2 consecutive huge wins. Marshall, then on the road at Georgia State. The Mountaineers heading up to Harrisonburg this weekend, Jimmy, for a matchup with James Madison. And then we'll also talk a little bit about the college football silly season in our fourth quarter. So that's a little preview of today's show. But back up to that first quarter. And Jimmy, the last 2 places where you worked on the sideline, North Carolina and Duke, playing the Jimmy Collins Bowl for the Victory Bell. It goes to double overtime. Great win for North Carolina. The students take the field. Everybody celebrates. I'm all around the triangle earlier this week, and people are wearing their Carolina blue. But North Carolina's defense really struggling against the third-string quarterback from Duke University.
You know, Mike, they played pretty well through 3 quarters, and then the fourth quarter, just as the Virginia game, I think Duke had close to 230 yards total offense in the fourth quarter. But the critical part of the game was, in my opinion, was the kicking game, where Mike Elko was. Made some great calls in that situation. Number 1 with the onside kick, number 2 with the fake punt, and then the Tar Heels made a critical mistake with the fair catch that ended up being on the 1-yard line, and then the very next play, Drake throws an interception. So that was a 14-point turnaround right there. So a game that could have gotten out of hand very quickly all of a sudden became a very close game that ended up going into 2 overtimes.
Now let's talk about Drake Maye. Again, an excellent quarterback, pretty much a consensus number 1 pick in the upcoming NFL draft. If he comes out, he's still saying he hasn't made that decision yet. Hard to fathom that. But Jimmy, the line for Drake Maye, 28 of 43, a pick, a touchdown, 342 yards. But again, he's doing things on the ground that make him an absolutely fantastic pick. And the intangibles, getting out of tight situations, that's the juice that makes him a truly generational pick for somebody in the NFL.
No doubt. He is absolutely fabulous. He's big, 6'4", 6'5", whatever they're going to measure him at the combine if he decides to go 225, 230, whatever that is. And he can run. He makes great decisions. I mean, he has all the tools. I mean, why would you not take this guy as either the first or second quarterback to come off the board? In my opinion, he's the first guy to come off the board, but I have not seen and studied all of them. And I happen to be a Drake Maye fan. So I think he is absolutely outstanding. I've been around a lot of good quarterbacks in this career, and he is without a doubt in the top 2 or 3 that I've ever been around.
One of the things that was a big story coming out of that North Carolina double overtime victory over Duke was the officiating. The ACC football officials, did they miss calls? Did they swallow their whistle on a few other calls? It doesn't really matter because those things happen in the ebb and flow of the game. What could be up for debate is why the officials did not look at the late interception perceived by Duke of Drake Maye that really could have changed the outcome of this game. Why is it that they do not look at every play, or do they look at every play and they just missed one?
Well, we if you've watched on TV lately, you've seen, especially on the ACC network, when they go to a replay, they show the ACC war room where they're analyzing all these plays. I can't begin to answer why they did not review that play. I have no idea. And for me to sit here and say that I have an opinion on whether he caught it, whether it was a simultaneous catch or whether it was an interception, I didn't have a good enough view from television to make a decision on that. But the ACC should have had a decision on that without a doubt. I think the play should have been reviewed, whether it goes for the Tar Heels or whether it goes for the Blue Devils. Who am I to say? That's for the ACC office to say, and I think the play should have been reviewed.
One thing that North Carolina doesn't have to do is rebound from a disappointing loss at home against Duke. They get the win over the Blue Devils. Now they go on the road to Clemson this weekend in a big 3:30 kickoff against the Tigers, who are all of a sudden playing Clemson football again. Still shaky on offense, but enough that Vegas has the Tigers listed as a 6.5-point favorite. What do you think about that game coming up in Death Valley between Dabo and Mac?
Well, I think 6.5 points. I think we all have to look at that because 3 of those points are based on playing at home in Tiger Stadium. So it's it's basically a 3-point game, 3.5-point game as you look at it. I will be tuned in at 3:30 on Saturday because I think it has a chance to be an outstanding game. It's a rematch of the ACC championship game a year ago in Charlotte, where really Klubnik had his coming out party against us, and I say us because I was part of that staff at that point in time. It will be interesting to see what the plan of attack is on both sides of the ball as far as the Clemson offense, completely different offensive coordinator for the Tigers. And then on defense, where Gene Chizik will have the opportunity to replay that game. And in that game, there were a lot of RPOs within that game with Klubnik. And I look forward to watching and seeing what the philosophy is of Coach Riley as he attacks the Gene Chizik defense.
That's the end of our first quarter here on Wild Dogs and Hogs. When we come back, we'll go to the second quarter. We'll talk some Wolfpack football, talk about Dave Doran's red and white as they get the big 20-point win over Wake Forest last week. It's Coach Jim Collins and myself, Mike Waddell, and this is Wild Dogs and Hogs on the North Carolina Sports Network.
Hey folks, David Glenn here. I cannot offer a greater endorsement or a bigger compliment than telling you about the folks that I use for important matters in my own life. That's the case with the Lawson Insurance Group, led by 3 actual brothers, Ken Lawson, Miller Lawson, and Michael Lawson. These guys operate a very successful family-oriented business right here in Raleigh, and that office happens to be one of those beautiful blends of NC State grads and UNC grads and graduates, fans and supporters of other colleges and universities all over North Carolina. I know these guys, I trust these guys, and I send these guys my own insurance business and that of my family. The next time you have insurance needs, I hope you'll do the same. The Lawson Insurance Group is known for its commitment to community and its dedication to ensuring that North Carolinians and their businesses are prepared for life's inevitable challenges, with the reminder that as a High Street insurance partner, Lawson Insurance Group offers local expertise and support that, combined with High Street's extensive national resources, means more choice and support for you as their client. As we speak, Miller Lawson's helping the Glenn family with our auto insurance needs, and Ken Lawson is the guy to call for your commercial insurance needs. If you Google High Street Lawson Insurance, their website will be the first to pop up. In sports, we talk a lot about impact players who make a positive difference. When it comes to our state's economy, the North Carolina pork industry is a true MVP. Each year, the pork industry plays an important role in supporting rural communities across our state. It contributes more than $10 billion a year to the North Carolina economy and supports more than 44,000 jobs. Learn more about their positive impact at ncpork.org. The North Carolina Pork Council, the foundational partner of the North Carolina Sports Network.
Wild Dogs and Hogs here on the North Carolina Sports Network with the coach, Jim Collins. I'm Mike Waddell, and let's go to our second quarter here and talk some Wolfpack football. Boy, Dave Doran has the Wolfpack riding high towards the end of this 2023 season, Jim. A big 20-point win over the Demon Deacons of Wake Forest. Now, Dave Clawson, in the aftermath of this game, is really taking it hard. He's questioning his own effort. He's putting the blame squarely on him. That's what a great coach does. He's taking the pressure off of his kids, but this is a team that truly, in the aftermath of Sam Hartman leaving, has really, really struggled in the pocket and really overall just not the Demon Deacons year.
Well, Mike, and I admire Dave. Dave has done a great job at Wake Forest, but and I admire him for taking the blame for the way this situation is going. Most head coaches this day and time are going to fire the offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator when things aren't going well. Just look around the country right now. So somebody, it's not who gets the credit, it's who gets the blame. So somebody's to blame right now, but Dave is taking the blame on his shoulders. And I'm not sure that's all deserved at this point in time. But, they don't have a whole lot of weapons right now. They don't have the Sam Hartmans. They don't have the great receivers that they've had. So they've struggled on offense, and it's been a real challenge for an offense. As a defensive coach, which I was against them for many years, they were difficult to defend, because they did such a great job with the slow ride and the RPOs and getting the ball vertically down the field and take advantage of you. So players make plays, and all of a sudden, when you can't make plays, all of a sudden, Dave Clawson and his staff did not lose their ability to coach football.
Robert Anae is the offensive coordinator for NC State. He certainly knows how to coach football. He knows how to get Brennan Armstrong to play his best. Now, in the second stint for Armstrong as the starting quarterback for the Wolfpack, look, he's not throwing up Drake May numbers. He's not throwing up Grayson Loftis numbers. But what he is doing is playing a winning brand of football for the Wolfpack. And that means that he threw for 111 yards on 12 and 17 attempts against the Demon Deacons, and he ran for another 96 yards. So defensively speaking, what does Brennan Armstrong do that will be tough this week as they travel to Blacksburg and Brent Pry has to construct a defensive game plan to quell the Wolfpack and continue the late season rise, yes, for the Hokies of Virginia Tech?
Well, anytime, Mike, that you have a quarterback that has the ability to run with the football, whether it's called runs or whether it's scrambles off of pass plays, whatever it may be, a running quarterback presents a lot of different issues for a defensive team. With called runs, what you're presented with a lot of times is an extra gap, and not very many people out there will understand what I mean by an extra gap. We're all gap control defenses, A, B, C, D. Then all of a sudden a lineman pulls and a back leads, and the quarterback is running power plays off tackle. Well, you've created an extra gap that takes another defensive player to fit that gap. And they obviously they did a great job with that, with 96 yards rushing by Brennan at that point in time, and they made safe throws with him. I'm actually a little surprised that he didn't throw for more yards than that, and I think part of that is that North Carolina State is doing a great job of managing who they have on offense. They do not have great skill. Tell me who starts at tailback for the NC State. Can you tell me that? Anybody out there? Can you tell me who the receivers are at NC State? Now the one kid, the one kid is making great plays for them, and they try to get him the ball as many ways as they possibly can. So you're talking about not an overly talented Wolfpack team, and their offensive coaches and Robert and I and Kurt Roper and those guys are doing a great job with a plan for them to win games. Tony Gibson is playing great defense. Peyton Wilson and that group, you got to give them a lot of credit now. They're doing a great job. Now they'll be challenged at Virginia Tech. The Brent Pry group, they're playing well right now. I was surprised they put that many points on a pretty good Boston College team this past weekend.
That's the coach, Jim Collins. I'm Mike Waddell. This is Wild Dogs and Hogs on the North Carolina Sports Network. And when we come back, we'll go ahead to the third quarter. We'll talk some Mountaineer football. Sean Clark's and the App State Mountaineers are red hot off big wins over Marshall and Georgia State. And now they get ESPN Game Day in Harrisonburg, Virginia against the top 20 ranked Dukes. James Madison. Boy, that's going to be a heck of a game coming up on Saturday afternoon as well. We'll talk about that next right here, all across the Old North State on the North Carolina Sports Network.
Hey folks, David Glenn right here in Raleigh. One of my favorite restaurants for many years has been The Oak, Scratch Kitchen and Bourbon Bar. It's located on Lake Boone Trail, which happens to be a perfect location for a great meal and beverage if you're on your way to nearby Carter Finley Stadium or perhaps PNC Arena for a concert, Wolfpack or Hurricanes game, or other event. The menu is incredibly tasty and creative. The atmosphere is a lot of fun. The bourbon options are as high-end and varied as you'll find anywhere. The staff is super classy and first-rate, and I've just always loved the people, the food, and the overall vibe there. When I took Carolina Hurricanes owner Tom Dundon to lunch, yes, meaning the billionaire who owns the hockey team, I took him to The Oak. Seriously, it's that good. Learn more or make a reservation by visiting their website, theoakraleigh.com. That's theoakraleigh.com. Special thanks to Nick and Haley and their team for joining the family here at the David Glenn Show and the new North Carolina Sports Network.
Sport Clips is like no other place you've ever gotten your haircut. Sports everywhere, TVs everywhere playing sports, and guys, smart stylists who know how to give you the haircut you want and the haircut you need. You don't ever need an appointment. Walk-ins are welcome, and you'll walk out feeling like an MVP, guaranteed. Be sure to ask about the MVP experience, as it's something you just can't put into words. Awesome haircut, hot steam towel, invigorating shampoo, neck and shoulder treatment. It takes a haircut and turns it into an event. Sport Clips, a proud partner of the North Carolina Sports Network. A $5 ticket.
The third quarter here on Wild Dogs and Hogs. The coach, Jim Collins, myself, Mike Waddell, right here on the North Carolina Sports Network. And earlier this season, boy, Appalachian State was racked in the preseason by injuries. Their tailback had injuries. Noel is back, though, now. He is running strong. And all of a sudden, there is noise off the mountain that the Mountaineers could be back, and they will get in the bus and they will steam up to Harrisonburg this weekend for a battle with James Madison and Jimmy. I tell you, after beating Marshall and Georgia State, both very, very big rivals for the Mountaineers for a variety of different reasons. The Marshall rivalry, a historical one, the Georgia State one, because mainly the former Appalachian State athletic director and NC State lineman Charlie Cobb is now the AD at Georgia State. And the head coach at Georgia State is Sean Elliott, but he is all-time winless against his alma mater. I like to say that again. Sean Elliott is all-time winless against his alma mater as the Mountaineers go down and pound Georgia State 42-14. It wasn't that close, and there was literally nobody in the stadium. It looked almost like they were doing a Bill Veeck, nobody can come to the game type promotion. But it does set up now a big opportunity for Appalachian State against the number 18 team in the nation. I tell you, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this one between the Dukes and the Mountaineers.
Well, it's an exciting game, and it's a great opportunity for both James Madison and great exposure for the Mountaineers of Appalachian State. So wonderful, and I applaud Game Day for making that decision to go to Harrisonburg for that game. it is a huge game for the Dukes and a huge game for both. But the reason I say it's a huge game for the Dukes, because obviously it's their bowl game. It's their championship game at this point in time. So if they're like the rest of us, and I was part of one of these situations when we first went to the University of Florida in 1990, we were on probation. We could not go to a bowl game. We couldn't win the SEC championship. But guess what? We kicked everybody's ass at that point in time, and we won the SEC. Do we claim the SEC championship? You damn right we claim it, and we've got the ring to prove it. So that's what the Dukes are playing for, and I agree with you 100%. The Mountaineers have gotten healthy. They're playing really, really well on both sides of the football right now. They've beaten two good teams in Marshall and in Georgia State. It'll be a heck of a game. I wish it was on something besides ESPN Plus, because I'd like to watch that one. That'll be a good football game.
And that game comes up, of course, at 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. As Jimmy said, ESPN Plus, Appalachian State, and James Madison. When we come back, right after this final timeout, we'll have the fourth quarter, and we're going to talk about the craziness that is the silly season in college football. It comes up right after this on the North Carolina Sports Network.
Hey folks, David Glenn here for Organize for Success. I am a better person and a more effective business owner for having known and learned from Emily Parks over many years now. Emily's company, Organize for Success, helps multi-passionate business owners and executives bring harmony to all the layers of their lives, from work to side projects, from friends and family to hobbies, community, and beyond. With Emily's help, you too can make every minute matter. She helps you determine what earns your time and how to efficiently accomplish what matters. One of the many things I love about Emily is that she doesn't impose her will on her clients. She listens to them. That way she can better help them cultivate the lives they want to live. You can set up a complimentary call with Emily today by visiting organizeforsuccess.com. That's organize, F-O-R, success.com.
The original Saltworks has been serving the Wilmington area for over 50 years. Owner Bob Hubbard and his staff create a welcome atmosphere to go along with their home-cooked breakfast and lunch that simply cannot be rivaled anywhere in North Carolina. Eggs, waffles, hot dogs, crab cakes, and the best grits in the state. The original Saltworks, a proud partner of the North Carolina Sports Network.
Jimmy Collins, Mike Waddell, the North Carolina Sports Network, and Wild Dogs and Hogs. Boy, what a show it's been. We've talked North Carolina and their win over Duke, NC State, their win over Wake Forest, Appalachian State's two big wins in a row, heading into Harrisonburg this weekend against the number 18th ranked James Madison Dukes. And now in the fourth quarter, we're going to talk about something that is absolutely stupid, and that's silly season in college football. We sit here today on the second week of November, and you have an opening at Northwestern and at Michigan State. Two Big Ten openings. We knew about that because Mel Tucker got ditched earlier this season, and Pat Fitzgerald got ditched in the preseason from Northwestern. Brady Hoke at San Diego State, the former Michigan head coach, he resigns earlier in the week. He'll get paid out. They'll write it out into glory. He didn't really resign. They showed him the door. That's why they're paying him the buyout. Andy Avalos is ditched at Boise State. We have Zach Arnett, after only 11 games, ditched by Zach Selman, the new AD at Mississippi State. Of course, Arnett was elevated to that position late last year after the untimely death of Mike Leach, who was the head coach of the Bulldogs, and also Jimbo Fisher. Hey, Jimmy, you don't need to be really that good at your job. Just have a great agent like Jimmy Sexton who will jack up your contract, and you can get $76 million to not do the job. I tell you one thing, and I was talking to a Power 5 coach earlier today. He said, I wish somebody would pay me $76 million. The only question I'd ask them is, which door do you want me to leave out of?
Exactly.
Have you ever thought in your wildest dreams that you would see somebody be bought out $76 million?
Well, that, as shocking as the 76 million is, Mike, they've already paid him 19 million to be average as average can be. And I like Jimbo. I've known Jimbo a long time, but they haven't been very good. As we look at it, not worth $95 million for the length of that contract. But wow, pay me $76 million. You could pay me $7.6 million, and I'd be happy to go away at this point in time. But yeah, that's absolutely unbelievable.
Now, it's funny to read the reactions on X. That platform is really the opiate of the idiots. And people are out there saying, how could they be using taxpayer money to pay this? They're playing that with the 12th Man Foundation. It's privately run money, and there's so many billionaires with a B that give money to Texas A&M, those oil folks down around Houston and a College Station. They raised that in 3 phone calls. Ross Bjork is not a dumb guy. He played college football himself. He's raised tons of money at UCLA. He's been the AD at Ole Miss, and he's a great AD for Texas A&M. They're going to get a strong coach, but I would think that when you're willing to pay somebody $76 million, you're going to go after somebody pretty big. You have to at least have an inkling of the person that you're going to target for that job.
They did not even blink when they made that decision, because they made it after scoring 50-plus points against Mississippi State. They made it for multiple reasons, because they didn't want to fire a 7-win coach or an 8-win coach. I think Texas A&M is either 6-4 or 6-5 at this point in time. So it's interesting. They made the decision for the reason that they wanted to go a different direction.
When you look at these openings, Michigan State, Northwestern, San Diego State, Boise State, then you have Mississippi State and Texas A&M. So far, A&M by far and away is the best job of the lot.
Well, the precedence has already been set with what they paid Jimbo. So the next guy is not going to walk in there and take that job for $2 million for 5 years. They will pay big, and they will pay a lot of years. So the next contract's is going to be huge also, because I wouldn't take that job. You're going to say I'm not worthy of what Jimbo got. So. It's going to cost them a lot of money to get rid of Jimbo, and it's going to cost them a lot of money to get the next head coach.
If you're Ross Bjork, you're the AD at Texas A&M, you just fired a guy who has won a national championship, who is a household name. Do you go to a Mike Elko, who maybe has history at your campus, but is not really a household name, has only been a head coach for a couple of years, or do you go after somebody who has NFL background, maybe another Power 5 coach that is – out of work for whatever reason? What would be your MO in forming a search plan for the next head coach at Texas A&M?
Well, that's a great question, Mike. And I've questioned a lot of times in this long career that I've had, and you're an administrative guy, and you understand what I'm going to ask. What are you searching for? What are you looking for in a head coach? And when you start doing the research for a head coach, I look for somebody that has won in a situation where he didn't have absolutely every advantage, and that he's had the opportunity to go in and compete and build a program, and has built it with the other person's players, because that's what usually happens, and has won and has been in every game that he's competed in. So I look for a guy that's been competitive at whatever level he's at. Sometimes when you look at people that have bounced around from every major job that there is, I'm talking about from the top of the line jobs to the next top of the line job, I would be interested in that guy that's won it somewhere other than a place that's had every advantage that a person can have. I don't know if that makes any sense. I know that was maybe stumbling around a little bit, but give me the opportunity to do research on the guy that's coached his ass off and won on his own.
It's going to be a heck of a hire for Ross Bjork, the AD at Texas A&M, to make. And it's also one that he knows that if he messes this up, he's going to be next out the door. So I would bet that this one would not be an immediate hire, but I would bet that there would be a new coach in Aggie land by the time we hit December 1st, because signing day, the early one, is coming up on December 20th. How much pressure does that put on a coaching search, or is the recruiting, the guys who are going to sign in the early period, pretty much already inked in stone at a lot of places?
No, nothing's inked in stone. As you can see, the University of Florida right now is struggling and lost a big game this past weekend to LSU after losing to Arkansas, and you see recruits decommitting, and not only from Florida but from other places out there. The recruiting part of it is absolutely huge, because we are all, and I don't care what anybody says, we're all better coaches with better players. Some people can grow a team and build a team, but we're all much better when we've got really, really good players. And I'm gonna throw this one out there. And I talk to a lot of people. One of the rumors out there right now is Lincoln Riley going to Texas A&M. Lincoln Riley from Southern Cal, who is a Texas guy now, as you may know. That rumor's out there already. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen in this business this day and time?
And the AD that hired Lincoln Riley in Troy was Mike Bone, and he got bounced earlier this year. They have a new president, a new AD. Hey, that is a really great thought right there. Lincoln Riley to Texas A&M. We're going to keep an eye on that. But coming up later in the week, right here on the North Carolina Sports Network, Coach Collins and I are going to go inside the recruiting thing a little bit deeper. We're going to talk about portal recruiting, what's going on in the coaching war rooms right now to recruit players off other teams, in addition to the high school kids who will sign in December and in February. We'll talk about that coming up on the Old North State Tailgate when we join Chris Edwards and David Glenn later on this week. That's our 4 quarters this week on Wild Dogs and Hogs. For the coach, Jim Collins, I'm Mike Waddell. We'll talk to you next week right here on the North Carolina Sports Network.